Hey, this is Jesse James, and today I'm giving my review, test ride, and thoughts on what I still think is the most slap-on motorcycle that Harley-Davidson's making, the Heritage. But this is going to be over the 2025 Heritage specifically. I think this is a model that people have been sleeping on for a while, not just in the model 2025 year. But you are hard-pressed to find a more classically designed bike that is comfortable for going across the country if you really wanted to without having to go over to a touring platform. And now with that 117 is definitely peppy as well. So one of the first things I noticed about the Heritage with this redesign, it's left completely alone for the most part with the overall look and style, but they went throughout and just gave it a few like tweaks here and there, quality of life wise. Starting out with the thing that I've pointed out on every single one of my Softail reviews, and that's just because if you've ever had to air up a tire on a motorcycle and it didn't have an outward facing valve stem, you know how difficult it is, how big of a deal it is to have that on there. That outward facing style stem valve, it makes it so much easier to air up your tires. On top of that, this is very close to the same one we were running on the touring bike, so that will also works as a TPMS sensor and gives you basic, hey, your tire's starting to get low. I am not somebody that goes fully by that. I use that more as a regular, like as a warning system, and still go more by a regular old tire gauge than I do that, but it's still very nice to have on there. You'll also notice that the rim is different this year. So stock from the factory, they come with this mag wheel setup. It's a throwback to, I believe, 18 up to 20 they were coming on this. Don't quote me on that. You are still available to get the laced option. It is the same laced option that you see here. Personally, I would go with the laced option myself. You are looking at a little bit more money, but for that more traditional style bike, I like the traditional styling and the fact that if a single spoke breaks, you just have to fix that spoke, not replace a whole wheel. It's a very nice quality of life feature. Next on the Heritage, you do have the bigger front forks, same as what we saw in the 2024 and the 2023 beforehand. Just with the bigger motor, they have tweaked the suspension. The real talking point and conversation piece has to come with your headlights. This is one of the few bikes, I think, other than the Tri-Glide, that's coming with this 3-light setup from the factory. I really like it. Again, just more of that nostalgia style. And then for visibility, plenty visible. And then, of course, now LEDs down there for your turn signals from the factory. That is something that long overdue in my opinion. They are not a part of your running lights though. They are only your turn signals. So I'll try and make it to where the camera isn't looking right into the light, not blinding you. But the bike's on right now and the lights are off. It's only whenever you turn on your turn signal will that light shine. Now this is a question less about functionality because this is coming with a windshield from the factory. All of the 2025s are coming with the windshields where it's fully blacked out down on the bottom to match what is essentially a blacked out bike. I'm personally not a fan of it. I get it, it's just black on black to match the rest of it, but for these windshields where you can't see down low, for me, I don't think it's a safety issue at all, just because you can still have plenty of visibility. For me, I'm not a fan of how it looks from an aesthetic point of view. I get it, it matches the bike, but for me, I'd want a clear windshield on the Heritage, show off those bars a little bit more. But what are your thoughts? Comment down below. So on the 2025s, we are sporting a new tank decal and pinstriping through it. I really dig this setup. I think it looks good. It's a nice replacement for what we've been running before. And this is actually a throwback style. Harley has run this one before, but I love the fact that it's on this bike and it looks different. And that blue and the different paints, it pops a little bit more on some, but it's good on all of them. Here it is. That's the older badging that the current one is taking inspiration from. So it is not an exact one-for-one. So this is actually a bike that just came in on trade later on in the day from when I recorded the rest of the footage. But apparently at the time, you could get that badge in different colors. So I just thought that was neat. So the Heritage is still sporting the 5-gallon gas tank, and paired with the 117 Classic engine. Still going to be getting plenty of fuel efficiency and miles. I know on my 117 on the lowrider, I was usually getting close to 150, 200 miles in between fill-ups and stuff. So gas tank's plenty, even with the 117 motor. When riding on this motor, the only thing that I can say with it is it feels exactly the way that you would think it would, in a good way. On my Lowrider ST video, I described the 117 high output as it was fun, but I still had to be above 3,000 grand to really feel the difference in how that motor performed. On this, it felt like exactly what I would expect a 117 to feel like on a platform that traditionally had either the 107 or the 114. So I really dig the 117 Classic engine. Plenty of pep, plenty of get up and go, and just a very fun engine. In the way that the suspension was tweaked across this bike made it to where, like, I, for one, I'm more of a performance person whenever I ride, so I like to get into the twisties and really lean it over. And I was flicking this bike around the road like a giddy child, just because that's the way that this bike felt. And to me, anytime a bike can make you just like want to goof off while riding, it means it's a good bike. Now this is the part where I'm genuinely curious to see what people think about it. The Heritage sporting a 2-into-1. Is that something that you like? Do you like the look of it? Or is it something that you would have to change immediately? I know for me, for one, whenever I was riding on it, it didn't really bug me. Whenever I was pulling it into the showroom, though, this was running incredibly quiet, even for M8. Like it was very noticeable how much quieter that stock exhaust is compared to what we had before. Now I know that the 117, like the Milwaukee 8 engines, just in general, they work a lot off back pressure. So that's one thing that I could potentially see of why I go into a 2-into-1 on this bike in order to get to sport that 117 motor. But just the overall quietness of it. This is probably one of the most quiet Harleys I've ridden on stock. But what are your thoughts? Do you like the look of the 2-into-1, or is that something that you would have to change? Now, one of the things I really like about the Heritage and why it's one of my top 2 Softails from the factory is the saddlebags that come with it. Classically styled to have that soft bag look, but a little one touch there, and then swings open and it's a hard bag. I know some people aren't crazy about the look. I could take it or leave it with the look, but the functionality is definitely there with this setup. And then you can't lock those saddlebags. That's why I actually had to move her to that one, because this one, good and locked, it's not going anywhere. The other thing is in the rear now, it's full LEDs across the entire back end. That is new. On the previous Heritages, they did not have LED brake lights, running lights, or turn signals, so all LED now. Your tail light will now work as your running light, whereas your turn signals will be off until you hit the blinker, just like on the front. Now, something that I didn't like on my ride is the floorboards. They just don't make a whole lot of sense to me. Not a floorboard in general, but it's so narrow in the back and in the front. I get it in the back, so you're not having the scraping. In the front, though, like my foot was hanging off the entire time. For me, I'd like it to be more like the touring bikes, where it was actually like all the way and it starts to curve at the end, not this early. Because again, like my feet were just hanging off the entire time. That's something I will show you up here in the front. You do have a USB-C little charging spot from the factory on this bike. If you have a previous Rushmore, what I would call a Rushmore style Softail, where it has the Milwaukee 8 engine, you'll have a USB in that spot, not the USB-C. So another thing that I wasn't crazy about doing my ride that I wanted to point out now, before I go over controls, is actually the seat here. So the seat looks great, but from a comfort standpoint, and it may have just been because it's a seat that needs to be broke in, felt like this was pushing me too far forward. I wanted to sit more in the bike. So I would be changing out a seat to where it wasn't so much cushion pushing me forward, but that's an easy thing to do. For the seats and a lot of the accessories, you should be able to interchange stuff from anything from, I would say, probably a 2018 all the way up to a 2025 when it comes to stuff like that. So your view from the cockpit is going to be very similar to previous Heritages, but also the new style controls. One of the things I really like about the Softails being the last ones to get these updates is everything feels new, but it's all stuff Harley's been doing for a while, either on the touring bikes or the race team's been messing around with it. And so it's a lot of new, but it's also a lot of like the same. And that's just something that I really like as a consumer, because that's always my big concern is when you do a big change, how's it going to operate out in the wild? So while I'm sure there's still going to be small things, there's so much of it that's already been ironed out. For your controls, you'll see cruise control here on this side. Your high beam has been moved back there, so it's a lot easier to get. You can scroll through your odometer here, which will also scroll through your tire pressure monitoring, fog light button, turn signals horn. Over here on the other side, hazards, the toggle button for your traction control, kill switch, run switch, then your modes button and turn signal on this side. For your kill and run switch, whenever you have it down, it'll turn it on, and then you just tap it one more time and it'll turn on. For your modes, this bike is getting all the same modes that we saw on and have come to expect of everything that's not the touring bikes, of having your road mode, sport mode, and rain mode. Something I wanted to point out is here on our gauge cluster. So you'll notice here, those flashing lights for your ABS and traction, just like on your touring bikes, those will keep flashing until the bike starts moving. Once the bike starts moving, those lights will stop flashing because that sensor is motion-based. So once it starts moving, it'll be fine. Same with your neutral light indicator. Once you put it into gear, you don't have to worry about it. And then your oil and check engine light will turn off if there's no codes. Something I wanted to point out too is right there with the battery with the lightning flash. That means that your bike, it's basically just drawing from the battery. It's a little warning that Harley's put onto the newer models. That way, if you're working on the stereo or something like that, you get a little bit more heads up before your battery's completely dead. Another thing I'll point out that I really, really dig on this bike is the way that your gear indicator pops up. It's right there. Big, bold, and in your face. That's something that I really digged when I was on my test ride, because I find it incredibly irritating whenever someone's like, oh, we've done this to the bikes, we've made it to where you're visible, seen, blah, 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 for the indicators, but it's in a small little spot. Like, I was never a fan of the Rushmore style because it was up in that little gauge and it was tough to see realistically. Like, I was still like, oh, just know what gear you're in. That is bold and in your face, so I really dig that. So something else that I'll point out with this bike is on the Heritage, you can make some bar adjustments right there by loosening those bolts, and it allows you to have a certain degree of motion on the bars to make it where it fits you more comfortably. The Heritage is the bike that out of the box I think has the most comfortable rider triangle, and that's where your hands and your feet are all sitting in relation to where you fall into the saddle. The Heritage is the most natural rider triangle. Part of me feels like that's why it's been around for so long, because it's had a very similar rider triangle the entire time. But yeah, absolutely dig the setup. I love the fact that you can change the placement of those bars, get them tweaked to how you want. If you were somebody that's out buying a Heritage, definitely see if you're not entirely comfortable on something, see if they can bring a tech from the back to do a quick adjustment. Most places aren't going to. Now on to the test ride section of the video, where I tell you my first thoughts and impressions when actually out riding this bike. To me, this is the best riding 2025 Softail yet. This bike, the best way to describe it is kind of like a perfect sequel to a movie, of where it's still got that overall essence and feel of the first movie, but they've made improvements and tweaks and basically just continued the story, but without forgetting where it came from. That's exactly how it felt like whenever I was riding on this bike. Whole bunch of small little improvements made across the entire platform without losing what we've come to really enjoy the Milwaukee 8 Heritage for. Like, I remember thinking to myself when out on the test ride of this bike of, in the right mood, I could easily see myself touring on this Softail, which is exactly what this bike was built to do originally. So, fantastic riding bike. If you liked the Heritage before, you're going to love the tweaks they've done to it. And if you haven't ridden a Heritage before, please go out and do so. You are sleeping on probably one of the best bikes that Harley-Davidson has ever made and is continuing to make. Things that I liked on it, the 117 Classic engine feels exactly like you would expect that 117 to feel like, which, as Harley has marketed, that's what the Classic engine's supposed to feel like. Exactly what you were looking for with that little bit of extra power. Rideability, this bike is super light yet super comfortable. This has one of the best rider triangles out of the box, in my opinion. I would change out that seat. The stock seat on the bike isn't wide enough, if that makes sense. Like, I almost felt like I was sitting a little too tall onto it. So I would switch it out to a Mustang seat or one where I could just sink down a little bit easier onto it. The 117 had plenty of get up and go. Felt a lot like my 2023 Lowrider ST. Like, basically everything that I didn't like on the 25 Lowrider ST, saying, oh, I was missing this feeling, they got it on the 2025 Heritage. Like, I was flicking this bike around like nobody's business, just because it just felt fun to do so. The suspension didn't feel stiff. It was great. I would end up changing out the floorboards on this bike. Reason being is my feet were hanging off the sides, and it was like in the middle it's fine, but where it gets more narrow up in the front, that's where my issue is at with it. If I'm going to have a floorboard, I want to have like that full floorboard all the way across the bike. I would also be changing out the exhaust for sure. The EPA has this bike choked up like crazy. I remember whenever I was riding it into the showroom after the test ride, even though I was wearing a helmet, I was struggling to hear anything going on from the bike itself, even though I knew it was running because we were going through the showroom. So, gotta change out the exhaust on this bike. It is way too quiet. But yeah, this is a fantastic bike. The ride modes felt really great too. Rain mode is definitely a very safety-focused one, whereas road felt exactly like you would expect a 117 engine to respond, and then that sport mode, like edge of your seat adrenaline. Fantastic bike. Loved this test ride. Now on to the different color options and pricing for the 2025 Heritage. So starting price is $22,999, as you can see up there. There is only going to be a black trim on this bike. You're not going to have a chrome. And I'm curious to see how long they do that. I know that they've talked of like following trends, and where it was a little bit more 50-50 had become popular. And I don't think it's a terrible look at all, but I'm curious to just see how long they hold on to it. Now, the only option is whether you go with a cast wheel or a spoked wheel. Personally, I like the spoked wheel. I think it just looks a little bit better on the Heritage, but it's not a deal breaker either way for me. Billiard gray is a fine color. Also looks good. It's really done well for us at Evansville Harley. But yeah, no upcharge on this color or this setup. Let me know what type, if you would go with the cast wheel or if you would go for the laced wheel on this Heritage specifically. Next, we're going to go over to the Vivid Black on black. This is the one that we've done for most of this video. Personally, I'm not crazy about it. It's just a little bit too much black for me, especially on the Heritage. But let me know what your thoughts are below. Also, for that Vivid Black, it is $350. Now over to the White Onyx Pearl. I have seen this in person, specifically on the Heritage, and I really dig this color. I think that blue badging stands out a whole heck of a lot. And then the pinstriping is a nice breaking up of the colors, but not taking away from anything that's going on. And it's not standing out too much. For this White Onyx Pearl, you are looking at $650 for that color charge. And there's also a whole lot of metal flake. Next up is the Iron Horse Metallic. This is a color that, now that I've seen it in person, been around it plenty. This is more than just a nice paint job name. Good looking paint. Badging is subtle, plenty of metal flake, and complemented with a really nice name as well. Iron Horse Metallic is $650. And then lastly is our Whiskey Fire on Black. For me, this is the best looking paint on the Heritage for the 2025 model year. The two-tone complements it really well. That swooshing line, which is not the first time Harley's done it, but it is a throwback setup. It just looks really good. Everything works incredibly well on this bike. The only thing it needs is more chrome, in my opinion, and a clear windshield. To do this two-tone color, you are looking at $850. And that is going to do it for this video of my review of the 2025 Heritage. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed the video, please give a like. Leave your comments or different thoughts down below on the Heritage. If you enjoy bike reviews, my different thoughts and experiences of working at a Harley-Davidson dealership in the sales department, consider giving a subscription to see kind of my journey on it. More than anything, though, I want to thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you out there riding.